Greetings, everyone. I'm TR.
I'm Thomas.
This is Original Thomas, Tom 2. Welcome to the podcast, Masculinity, Blessing or Curse. This is the third episode, and I have a special guest. I've already introduced him, but this is my namesake. This is my son. I am actually taller than him. I'm on a lower stool, but it's all good. The podcast centers on, and I say two primary focuses. One is passing on information, and I normally say from the Moses generation to the Joshua generation. But we live in an age where I want to say that there is an exchange on the mountain between Moses and Joshua. Because there are some things that Moses needs to know from Joshua, as well as things that did I say it right? Things that Moses needs to understand from Joshua, and things that Moses needs to also pass on to the Joshua generation. So there is an exchange on the mountain, is what I want to say. Secondly, as I've mentioned to you in the past, have lost two friends to suicide. And so the idea of containing that silence in men particularly, so that we, as I like to say, don't have number three for me. Okay? There are a few questions that, let's see. Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
Morehouse grad, go House. Went to Wake Forest grad school, but what I like to say important about me is I'm a strong black man, and I try to be better every day than the man I was yesterday. A lesson I learned from my father is to keep on progressing and be the example that you want to see in the world. And to keep it short, I'll keep it there.
Good sucking up, son. Good sucking up. Listen, there's a couple of questions that I kind of pulled out randomly, of course, with some of your help, that I'd want to highlight, and we can jump right into this. How would you define your relationship with your father figure growing up? And be careful, because I'm close to you.
I would say blessed, to put it in one word, blessed. And I'm not saying this just because you're here. And a lot of people who worked with me have heard me talk about my father on a regular basis, because you were there, first off, and you were a positive role model, someone I could look up to and will guide me, not always just take over, but tell me and lead me in the right direction so I can go where I needed to go, and corrected me when I was wrong and needed correction, but also talked to me in those moments to explain, this is how you do the right thing. This is where you need to go. And I'm very appreciative of that, and I'm very blessed to have had that growing up, and want to continue to bring that forward going forward.
Wow! Okay, so I'd like to talk about the transparency, and what you just said, what you just shared with me, is something that in a generation prior to mine would not have allowed men to express that kind of compassion, relationship with one another. And I'm proud to be able to say, my father, and I'll just say this quickly, my father never said to me, "I love you, son." And it was not because he didn't. He was a consequence or a prisoner of the age that he lived in, so it did not allow him that freedom. So being able to have us express that, or me to say to you, "I love you," and very proud of you and who you are, who you've become, and to give me that pat on the back, and I certainly appreciate that. But it's something that becomes a challenge for men throughout, that the role model that they had growing up was a challenging one. And we'll talk about that with others as we go forward. Here's another question for you. What advice would you give to another man who is struggling with the silence and maybe even going into depression or loneliness or anxiety as we are in this current age of millennial and Gen Z?
Depression is a real thing, and it's something that you need. Everyone needs to take seriously if they're dealing with it. I know someone who is. I myself went through a dark period in my life. I wouldn't say clinically we're depressed because never got diagnosed or anything of that sort. And I've met people who truly are clinically depressed. So I know the difference. So I'm not going to take that. But I did have moments that I questioned what I was doing here. But what I did, and I'm glad I did, was I reached out. And that's what I recommend. Reach out to people who love you. Reach out to people who can give you good advice. There are free free services for therapy, suicide hotline. There are various other things out there to take advantage of and use those. As a man, we often feel that, throw some dirt on it, walk it off, and just go through. But in hiding what you're dealing with, you're doing no one any service. You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to be hurt. You're allowed to go through things. But in order to get through things, you can't always do it by yourself. There are times that you have to reach out, talk to people, open up, find you a safe space. And if the environment that you're in is not a safe space that you can talk, change your environment. That is something I definitely had to learn, that I needed to change my environment. There were people around that were not good for me, and I needed to let them go.
Wow, that's powerful. I want to just add to that as a former pastor. Oftentimes, particularly in our community, we've been challenged with the idea that we should not seek out professional help. And I want to say to you that many of the ministers in the pulpit, though they may be very proficient in their skill in articulating the gospel, et cetera, many of them are not trained in the area of mental health. And if we rely solely on the fact that we need to go to the pastor and pray for him, or et cetera, then oftentimes we may be in a difficult situation because he may not be trained in that area. So I would concur, certainly, with seeking out professional help when those avenues are available. In fact, we're going to pause right here and go to get ready for another session because I don't want to challenge you too hard. But come back next time and we'll pick up some other questions that will go into more millennial versions of the idea of manhood. Thanks very much for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time. God bless.
God bless.